On a beautiful August afternoon, dozens of tall ships of various shapes and sizes, accompanied by hundreds of smaller boats, formed the largest flotilla in living memory as it left the small town of Falmouth in the southwest of England. These magnificent ships were all heading for the start of a race to Greenwich, over 200 miles away in London. On board these ships were over 800 trainee crew members, many of whom had never been to sea or even been sailing before. These trainees had been recruited to support the professional sailors and given the chance to experience life as part of a tall ship crew. The professional sailors had high expectations of their trainees, as the race would be a physical and emotional challenge and a life-changing experience for many of them. This tall ships race was organised by Sail Training International, a charity dedicated to the development and education of young people through sailing experiences. Over half of the trainees were under 25 years old, and many had difficult backgrounds to overcome. But there was no room on board for troublemakers. If the crew was going to make it, all the trainees needed to be open to new ideas and willing to get their hands dirty. The trip would take them far away from their creature comforts and force them to work together as a team.
It's a huge challenge because one of the great powers of sail training is that it goes out of range of the mobile phone, and everybody can see. It's very obvious why everybody has to work together. The sails don't go up unless you all pull together. Somebody has to steer the boat, has to cook, has to wash up, and all the other tasks on board. And even people who have no idea about boats at all very soon understand why it's necessary to work together, and it has a terrific effect on the crew. So right now, at the beginning of this race, we've got a lot of very anxious young people climbing the masts for the first time in port, pretty worried, white knuckles. But once they get to Greenwich at the other end, next weekend, they'll be confident, working together, and they'll remember it for the rest of their lives.
For some of the trainees, this is not their first time on board, and they're eager to spend more time at sea.
I started off not liking sailing at all. I was scared of boats, and now I'd happily live on one. I think it's made me more confident for meeting new people, and kind of making the most of it, like the time you've got. Because if you've only got a week on a boat, you kind of don't want to hang around and be like not doing much at the start. So I think it's just kind of taking things as soon as you can and making the most of it while you can.
Jack now helps first-timers on board find their sea legs.
I think probably the biggest thing is, sometimes when it's really rough, it's a bit uneasy, but you just get on with it, and as soon as you've been off for a couple of days, you forget that you even felt slightly ill in the first place.
And what's the biggest challenge when a new crew arrives?
I think it's just getting to know the new people, really. I mean, obviously you're always going to find people that you don't go on with quite as well, but it's just learning to kind of get around things and make the best of what you've got.
But it isn't just young people who have the opportunity to experience life as part of a tall ship crew. The most remarkable ship in the flotilla is, without a doubt, the Tenacious. Launched in the year 2000, the ship is fully accessible for disabled crew, giving people of all abilities and all ages the same opportunities as their able-bodied crewmates.
My name is Helen Leahy, and I'm sailing here as voyage crew on Tenacious, and this is my 10th voyage on Tenacious, which is one of the two ships owned by the Jubilee Sailing Trust, which specialises in access for disabled people as well as able-bodied sailors on this wonderful three-master ship. So every single detail is as accessible as possible for the widest number of people. So, for example, you might be surprised to know that somebody who's blind can actually steer the ship, because the compass has a speaking compass, so they can hear where they're going, even if they can't see where they're going. But for me, I think, as a disabled person in particular, it's about meeting other people who have different sorts of disabilities, working together with people as a crew, and when you come on board, you really don't know who your fellow crew members are going to be. They can be all ages, all shapes, sizes, colours, creeds, And that's fantastic. So it becomes a community of people who really become one, as it were, become as the crew and work together and live together in a fairly confined space for a week or so. And that's a very special experience. And I don't think it's an experience that you can have on land very easily.
The beautiful sunshine and the enthusiastic support of the crowds were a real morale boost for the crews as they embarked on their sailing adventure. And if they could all work together and support each other, there's little doubt that their efforts would pay off with a triumphant arrival into Greenwich.